Welcome to the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, where we break down Bendis' iconic run on Ultimate Spider-Man, issues 1 through 160, in Earth 1610. I'm Zach, and with me today, in the back left corner of your Guess Who board, it's Johnny O.
What's up?
Not much, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Zach. Do you... I think we should start putting in thunderous applause when you introduce me. You've always got these great introductions, and
no, I don't. Sometimes you've said that was a stinker.
Well, I have a funny Guess Who story. This is but you do always come in with something that I cannot relate to. My friends and I make dumb movies, or we used to back in college, and specifically the years before and after college. And one of the movies that we made was like a real life Guess Who, where it was just some stupid thing. And we were on the Guess Who boards, and then everyone would die when you got your picture flipped out and you'd blow up.
Do you still have this?
Yes, I'm sure that this is still very available on YouTube. Here, I'll try to find it really quickly.
Send that to me.
Okay, I'll look for it. We don't have to spend too much time on it now.
All right,
I'll be looking for it while we're talking.
Okay, dude. So what's up? How was your week?
It's been awesome. The Sirs won yesterday.
Oh, did they force a Game 7?
How do you not know this? Are
you
not following at all?
I was gonna watch. So we've already established I'm bad luck when I watch basketball. The team could have been the greatest team the whole year, but then I watch one game and they suck, right? So I'm doing a public service to Indiana by not watching the series.
Okay,
I'll go back.
That.
I'll catch up the highlights and everything.
This is I know this wasn't the plan, but we actually skipped a week recording, so now we're back to these episodes being very timely.
Yeah.
So this will come out when? Tomorrow? Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday? So this will come out before the Pacers-Knicks Game 7.
Let's go.
Exciting. What did you do this weekend?
I went to a little one-day DIY music festival up in Lansing, Michigan. It was pretty cool. It was the stages were in a public park and people's backyards and a community center and a school bus just parked in the street. It's pretty awesome.
Who did you go and see?
So I'd say the standouts of bands that I hadn't seen before were Sister Wife Sex Strike and the Casper Fight Scene. I'm definitely going to listen to more of both of them. And then,
who's naming these bands?
It's a terrible name.
Or it's an awesome name. I don't know. I don't have my finger on the pulse of what's cool in punk rock.
Yeah, it's memorable for sure, but it's cringy saying, "Oh yeah, I listened to Sister Wife Sex Strike." But then one of my favorite bands that I've seen many, many times, Direct Hit, also played. They were closed out one of the stages that was just in someone's backyard, and I had that moment that's every boy's dream where I'm singing along in the very front the whole time. I'm moshing the hardest.
No way.
Their set ends and their singer looks at me and says, "Call the next one." And I say my favorite song that they haven't played yet. And he's like, "All right, we're going to run it, but I need your help."
No, you are lying. You're fibbing, Zach.
I'm not.
Did you go up on stage?
There was no stage. They were standing on grass. But I had the mic for a minute, and then I almost lost my breath and threw up because it's one of those songs. John, it's the perfect song for me to sing because it requires absolutely no skill. It's just word after word so fast you can't get a breath out for 2 minutes.
Gosh.
So it's just yelling as fast as you can.
Okay. What was this festival called?
Stoop Fest. They're playing on someone's
Stoop Fest 2024, Lansing, Michigan. What was the song?
Dude, you're not going to find a video of it online. There was
Surely there's a video somewhere of it.
Yeah, and my buddy who I was with took it on his phone and sent it to me. But there was like 100 people in this yard. It's not like, this was a
Oh
stadium rock show.
my gosh.
But it still meant a lot to little old Zach.
Yeah, that's like the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
That is like everyone's dream. Gosh, it's funny. It's funny you say that. I was just at the Indians game this past week. Like it was like a 7th and 8th grade field trip, and
For those who don't know, the Indians is the minor league baseball team here in Indianapolis.
yes, the Indianapolis Indians. Which, when we were getting ready to go to the game, I was like, I can't believe we're still called the Indians.
Yeah, they got to change that at some point.
Didn't Cleveland even? They're
Yes.
like the Guardians now. I like couldn't believe it. Took it. I was like, do I have any Indians gear? No, of course I don't.
I think the only reason it'd be harder to change our name is because, like, Indiana, Indianapolis, it literally means like the land of Indians, and it's harder to change the state and city's name. Sorry, I
Okay.
interrupted.
Anyway, no. Okay. Anyway, so and it was reminding me of this bit that this comedian did. I can't remember his name. I wish I could. But he would talk about how like he went and threw out the first pitch. It might have even been a Cleveland Indians game, funny enough. And he's like, everybody has that feeling that you just like go up there and you're gonna throw a heater, and the manager will come out and be like, "You want to take a couple throws? Go pitch a couple innings," And you like got to do that. Anyway, it's like the funniest bit ever that I did not do justice for at all, but maybe one of our listeners will remember it and be like, "Oh, that is funny."
Do you know the classic George Carlin bit about baseball versus football?
No.
Oh, go look that up. It's like one of his best ones. It's like he's basically saying baseball is like a sport because the object is to be safe and go home, and football has all these like tough terms.
Okay, I'll have to watch that.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. Anyways, we got anything else?
Zach, I have like a million things for after for the
Okay.
something else, so maybe we should just get into this.
All right, let's hear it from the Better Business Bureau.
Okay, issue 110. This is, and we can only say this one more time after this, but this is the current record breaker for Mark Bagley and Brian Michael Bendis. 110 episodes and issues in. And we've got Spider-Man swinging on the cover with a looming kingpin over the city. And Zach, what building is he kind of looming across?
Was this your architectural thing that you were going to ask me?
Well, this was one of two.
Well, it's just a glass building that probably
Oh, okay.
doesn't exist in real life.
I thought maybe it wouldn't, but if it did, I thought you would be able to tell us which one it was.
No, dude, that's just a glass facade.
Okay. So, Kingpin's goons are driving Moon Knight out to the outskirts of the city to execute him. And one of them is talking about how this is a pretty big deal because all the other goons are going to be impressed that they got to pop their first superhero. And there's two goons. So one of them saying that, and the other one who's with him says that he shouldn't care so much what people thinks. And then he shoots Moon Knight in the head. And I think that's a good life lesson for this guy to be passing down to maybe like someone he's mentoring in this role.
Yeah, it's very Pulp Fiction. It's like these hitmen, they have lives too. They can impart
That's true.
wisdom.
This does kind of feel like Jules and whatever the other guy's name
Vincent.
is. John Travolta. Yeah, Vincent. And here's my architecture question for Zach. In the puddle on the ground, now those look like real New York buildings. Like, is that Fisk Tower, which isn't a real New York building, but it is in this universe? Is that the Empire State Building? Are those just random skyscrapers?
They look like random skyscrapers. One of them has a spire and kind of rising pediments from the side, which makes me think it would maybe be the Empire State Building, except there's taller shadows next to it, so that's not possible. And also, there's nowhere you could see the Empire State Building reflecting from water. So I think, I mean, first of all, I don't think these buildings are real, but I don't think if they were, it would be anything of note at that time in New York, that close to water.
There's nowhere that you can see the Empire State reflected in water.
It's in the center of the island.
I wonder how strange that. I wonder how. Okay, I don't know enough about shadows or buildings to know how rare that might be.
It's at a minimum like 20 blocks from the water on either side.
Okay. So, the goons shoot Moon Knight, they dump him in the water, and they purposefully leave him in his costume. And they say that Kingpin wants to send a message to guys in costumes. Find a new line of work. Elsewhere, Danny Rand is talking to Moon Knight, and he tells them...
Kingpin?
I'm sorry, he's talking to Kingpin, yep, sorry. He's talking to Kingpin, and I don't really like the way he's talking to Kingpin. He's like, you got too close. You let them know that they had a man on the inside. What did you expect to happen? You know, of course they would find out that it was me. And I think he seems kind of brave here, you know.
Yeah, where does he get off talking to the boss like that?
I know. And Kingpin asks how they found out that it was Danny. And then we see the events unfold. So Daredevil's yelling at Danny Rand that he can hear his heartbeat and smell his sweat. And Shang-Chi is trying to reason with Daredevil, telling him that he's known Danny Rand for years and he's a good guy. And then a big superhero kind of fight breaks out on the roof. Daredevil and Shang-Chi are kind of punching each other up a bit. And then Doctor Strange wraps Daredevil up with some magic linens and calms everybody down. And Danny Rand drops to his knees, and he says he's sorry. He says, you know, Kingpin found out that he has a daughter, and he threatened his daughter, and he was going to go and just kill Kingpin. But right before he did, he was like, I can't go back to jail. I have a daughter. So he had to help him. What do we think about this, his decision-making process?
Well, it's definitely trying to redeem him or explain him a little bit, you know? We're trying to save Iron Fist as a character that could be heroic in the future. I don't buy it. I think he's a coward.
I don't buy it either. I think he's a coward, too. I was thinking the exact same thing. I couldn't have said those 3 lines better myself. So, Shang-Chi just walks away in disgust. And Danny Rand tells the group, he says, beat me up. Kill me. I won't try to stop you. And he looks down and he looks sad and he says, I won't stop you. And he's a big dork.
He's being so dramatic.
He is being very dramatic. And now we're back in Kingpin's office. And Kingpin is like, oh, they didn't kill you? I would have killed you. And Danny tells the group, they gave me another chance. I had to distract. Daredevil said, you took his world, now he's going to take yours. And I had to distract you. And Kingpin is like, what? And he starts sprinting through the house in a big panic. And he runs down the hallway into Vanessa's room. And Daredevil is holding Vanessa up with his hands around her neck. The first time you read this, Zach, do you think he was going to kill her? Do you think he might kill her? Is there a chance he might end up killing her? I won't spoil it for our listeners. I think he might kill her.
He looks pretty serious. I mean, if he's bluffing, that's a hell of a situation for him to put himself in, going into Kingpin's house.
Exactly.
If he's bluffing, they're just going to shoot him.
How's he going to get out of this if he is bluffing?
Right.
Yeah.
It is interesting. This whole story arc, he's been like going back and forth on like, I'm going to kill him. No, we got to take him down the right way. Otherwise, it won't mean anything. Okay, well, we got to kill his wife.
Let's kill his wife.
He's changing the goal so often.
Yeah, that's such a funny... Honestly, this would probably hurt Kingpin more than dying himself.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, he cried when they killed his mistress, even.
Yeah. Not very heroic, holding a comatose woman hostage.
I'm just going to say
bad moment.
Perhaps not Matt Murdock's finest moment.
Yeah. But okay, never mind. We'll cut back to it in a sec. So we're in Moon Knight's psyche, and the two men and the little girl are all looking at Moon Knight face down in a puddle, and the two men are they're like, oh shoot, we're dead. And the other one's like, well, we're not dead, because if we were dead, we'd be dead. But we're here in this mental thing. So we're not dead. And the little girl is just screaming at Moon Knight to get up. And then a towering...
Yep. Have you seen The Dictator with Sacha Baron Cohen?
Yeah. No, I haven't. I was thinking of the James Franco, Seth Rogen movie when you said that.
Oh, that's The Interview.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen The Dictator.
There's a scene where him or his body double or someone gets shot in the head and then pops right back up, and they're like, it's okay, they shot me in the head, so I'm completely fine. I'm totally the same. And the joke is like he had
doesn't
no
have
brains.
a brain.
Yeah, that is Moon Knight in this scene. They're like, are we dead? We got shot in the head. No, dude, you're Moon Knight. You got shot in the head.
Yeah, we'll get to it here in a second when he eventually gets up. But a towering Ronin figure appears in this like mental psyche and grabs Moon Knight off the ground and yells, "Get up!" And in real life, we see Ronin climb out of the water and stand against the Moon Knight. And like
Moon Knight against the moonlight.
Yeah. How's he not? How doesn't he at least have a hole in his head? Shouldn't he be spilling brains out or something?
You would think.
You would think. So now we're back at Kingpin's, and Daredevil is yelling at Kingpin. He's kind of goading him. He's like, "Oh, I know all about your mystery wife in a coma." He's like, "I've got a theory of how she fell into this coma. Maybe she found out you were so awful and she just couldn't take it." And that's not a very good line or funny or anything like that. Like, it's not witty or...
Yeah, that's pretty weak sauce, Daredevil.
That is, yeah. And...
it's like Padme dying of a broken heart.
Yeah. Yeah, like, is he, like, saying it as a joke, or he's, like, actually saying it for real? Either way, we need to leave the quips to Spider-Man.
Yeah, he's a lawyer, not a doctor or a comedian.
And Kingpin is looking pretty scared. We've never really seen Kingpin like this. And Daredevil is telling him, he's yelling at him, he could snap Vanessa's neck before he even, like, makes a move towards him. And he looks at Kingpin and he says, "Finally, you're scared." And...
you missed it. Kingpin says, I believe you.
Oh, so, yeah.
Kingpin doesn't think he's messing around either.
No, not at all.
Telling.
Yeah, that is that. I'm glad you brought that up. That is a good panel there. Oh, Kingpin's just getting walked all over by these heroes this issue.
He was so in control of the situation for like 4 issues.
He was. And then he let Danny Rand come in and talk to him like he's not in charge.
A 3-game lead in the series.
Well, he hasn't yet. We'll see. Come on, Kingpin. You can
You
come
can
back.
do it.
So Daredevil's screaming at Kingpin. He's like, "You forced me to do this. You blew up my office building or something." I don't know if he says that. And just then, Spider-Man jumps through the window, and he and Daredevil are having a talk where Spider-Man's like, "I'm not going to let you do this." And Daredevil tells him that he has to. He says, "Kingpin knows who I am. He'll kill my friends. He'll kill my family. Like, I have to kill him." And I just can't help but notice that is true. He does. But he doesn't have to kill his wife. She's just in a coma. Like, killing his wife will not make him not come after his friends and family.
True.
You know?
Killing his wife, at that point, Daredevil has no leverage. Then Kingpin's goons are going to turn him into Swiss cheese before he can make a move on Kingpin.
Yeah.
Like, he's in less of a position to kill Kingpin right now than he's ever been before in his life.
They just need to get guns.
Why don't the superheroes carry guns?
I don't know. That's why that's why they should have had the Punisher on this team. We've been saying it for 5 issues.
Real talk, it would be really cool to see Daredevil, the guy who's blind, shooting guns, because he'd probably be more accurate than a regular person.
That would be cool.
And that's kind of something that they do in X-Men. I'm going to bring this all the way back. So in Days of Future Past, the comic, they're trying to stop Senator Kelly from getting assassinated or whatever. And the gunman is actually a blind mutant who can tell the future. So she can fire a gun, not because she can see where people are, but because she can, like, preemptively tell where they're going to be.
Oh, so she's the one who's going to kill Senator Kelly, who in the movie would be Trask?
Yes.
Interesting.
The movie changed some things.
Interesting.
But I just think it's a cool concept in comic books to have a blind person be shooting a gun using some other sense.
Yeah. And who kills JFK in that movie? in that comic.
Inconclusive.
So, to be honest, I don't really like this Spider-Man Daredevil talk. I feel like we just see enough morality talks. You can't do this. You're the hero. I won't let you do this.
We're supposed to be better than them.
Yeah, exactly. And Spider-Man's like, it was my fault my Uncle Ben died. I let the guy get away, but then I found him, and I could have killed him, and I didn't. So you shouldn't kill Vanessa. And you shouldn't kill Kingpin. And Spider-Man's like, she's just a sick, helpless woman. And Daredevil says, which is a good point, how innocent can she be if she's married to Kingpin? And we do know, at least in the TV show, she is kind of his right-hand person. She knows about his stuff. I don't know how she is in the comics, if she ever has any character development, or if she's always just in a coma, or Kingpin's wife or something. But
theoretically, a good or decent person could be married to a bad person. Maybe they don't know. We can't make rash decisions about people in comas, Daredevil.
That's true. So Daredevil says it's the only thing he'll understand. And Spider-Man, we see off screen, says don't do it, or please. And then Kingpin chimes in, it was just business. Don't make it personal. And Spider-Man's like, you don't know when to shut up, dude. And he asks Daredevil and Spider-Man what they want. And they kind of go back and forth. They're like, he's like, turn yourself in. And Daredevil and Spider-Man are like, well, he's not going to do that. He will never, ever turn himself in. And if we don't have any proof of it, it's not going to matter anyways. So they say, leave the country and don't come back. And Spider-Man points a big finger in his face. And he says, if you don't do it, I'll sick Nick Fury on you. And Daredevil says, you can do that? And Spider-Man looks up at Kingpin and says, I absolutely can, and he knows it.
This just feels like when little kids are like, my dad could beat up your dad.
It also, why wouldn't they just do it?
Right.
Like, they know Kingpin is bad. Surely Nick Fury will believe them if they all go to him and they're like,
Nick
hey.
Fury doesn't know?
Yeah, and I'm not so sure Spider-Man can sick Nick Fury on Kingpin.
He cannot. Like, a few issues ago, Nick Fury was gunning for him.
Yeah. Nick Fury changes his mind more than Daredevil does. And now we're at the police station. And something funny is happening in the background that Zach has drawn our attention to before, but there's just two random people in costume who are getting arrested for something that they did. And Moon Knight comes stumbling in. He's holding his head, and he's like, my name is Mark Spector, and Stephen Grant, and Moon Knight. The Kingpin Wilson Fisk beat me up and had me shot. Wilson Fisk tried to kill me tonight. And actually something I missed was right when he walked in, all the police officers pulled their guns on him. And then one of the guys is like, okay, he's unarmed, you jumpy sons of bitches. Put your guns away.
There can only be one rational cop at a time. This guy's the new one. Also, how funny is it that he's bleeding out the head and he doesn't go to a hospital first? He goes to the police station. And his confession is, I am 3 different people and here's the crime I was a victim of. Like, dude, they are not going to take you seriously at all.
But I think this is supposed to go nicely with the scene we just saw of Daredevil and Kingpin, or Daredevil and Spider-Man being like, there's no one who would what's the word I'm looking for? No one would like agree to his crimes. You know, we've got no proof.
Yeah.
No, and then the very next scene, right? Somebody comes in being like, Wilson Fisk did this. He tried to kill me. So now we cut back to Kingpin and he's furious. He's in his limo and he's like, all of these people, he's telling one of his goons, he's like, all of these people, just like finish them. The high school Spider-Man goes to, blow it up while class is in session. And his goon is like, it's a building full of school children. Are you sure? And he's like, I don't care. Blow up the school. And then he gets a look on his face. It zooms in real tight on his face again. And he says, while class is in session.
Does he not remember that just like 5 minutes ago, Spider-Man was literally the person who convinced Daredevil not to kill Kingpin's wife? Like, if anything,
but still, we
should be grateful for him, and he still owns his merchandising and everything.
No way, dude. I was gonna be furious if Kingpin just like left without something. You can't allow this to happen. As he rightly says right now, he says, they came into my home. They touched my wife. It's messed up.
But Spider-Man saved his wife.
I don't care. Blow up the school while class is in session. And he says, but what? Yeah, he says, while I'm gone, have Murdoch killed, break Doctor Strange's hands, and blow up the school Spider-Man goes to.
Doctor Strange kind of got off easy.
Yeah, he also wasn't there.
That's true. I think it's funny that
Doctor Strange is just a TV personality who like got roped into this. It's like messing with Dr. Oz.
I think it's funny that canonically Kingpin doesn't know and doesn't care who Shang-Chi is, and he forgot that he was part of their little superhero group.
That's true. That's true. He literally said, I hardly care, and threw him like a rag doll in my favorite scene of these 5 issues. So as Kingpin is yelling at his goons to plan all of this, like 1 million police officers and cars show up, And they tell him that he's under arrest for the attempted murder of Stephen Grant, a.k.a. Mark Spector, a.k.a. Moon Knight. And Kingpin is like, I don't know who this is. But then he realizes that it's like Moon Knight they're talking about. And he goes, wait, he's still alive? Kingpin would never say that. That's terrible. And then we get kind of our epilogue to this story. Kingpin's in jail. Now we get a couple pages kind of showing us where all of the heroes go. And this is set side by side with a bunch of news panels that say Kingpin busted. It shows him doing the walk of shame. We can see Moon Knight jumping off the building.
And that's the walk of shame out of the courthouse, not G.N. DeWolf's apartment.
That's true. Yeah. Nobody would have known that if you didn't say that right there. So Doctor Strange is just doing his thing. He's like doing magic in his building. Danny Rand is reading a bedtime story with his daughter and some woman standing behind him. Shang-Chi, I think this is Zach. He just kind of looks like he's like going to go be a nomad. It looks like he's going to take a subway somewhere. And I don't know.
He's got his bags all packed.
Yep. Daredevil's hanging off a church cross with his hand in his head, looking like a sad Catholic boy.
In the rain.
In the rain. This is the most like stereotypical Daredevil shot we've ever seen in our life. This is probably because he's really upset with himself that he was about to kill Vanessa, huh?
Dude, it could be a million different things that he's guilty about at any given second.
That's true.
I think in this context, that's what we're supposed to think, though.
And then this is all set to Spider-Man swinging. That's our final epilogue. And the news panels behind it say, of course, this is all speculation and hearsay. But what we do know tonight is that Wilson Fisk has been arrested and charged and is in jail. We're still trying to figure out who this Moon Knight is, and we'll report to you the mysterious events that led to this landmark arrest. But for now, we know that a hero has stepped forward, and a criminal has been brought to justice. And I think obviously they're not talking about Moon Knight, but it's supposed to convey that this is like Spider-Man, like brought Wilson Fisk to justice, and like all is right with the world. And then we turn the page, and it's Spider-Man Peter Parker just like walking sad in the rain next to a big Dollar General that just has Spider-Man logos on everything that you can think of. And I love this. I love this final page. I don't know if you noticed, Zach, but there's some awesome juxtaposition going on here between this final page and the last final page of the last Kingpin arc we had, where the heroes are talking and they're like, Kingpin is having a great night tonight. And then we see Kingpin sad and like depressed. And we get the exact same thing with Spider-Man in this one, and I love it.
Where they're like, the heroes have won and Kingpin's behind bars. All is right with the world. And then we just see Peter Parker walking by the Spider-Man merchandise, sad, realizing that Kingpin's still making the money.
It's amazing.
His heroism is what's going to pay for Wilson Fisk's legal defense.
Yep. This is by far my favorite, like, 3-person comics when we get them. When we get Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Kingpin, we just always get some good stuff. And Daredevil, I didn't even love in this issue. He felt like he was kind of like, I don't know, a side character in it, sort of. Like, he had a bunch of stuff to do, but he didn't, I don't know. What am I trying to say? I just wish he did more. I wish he was more relevant to, like, how the story got wrapped up, I know he was holding a comatose wife hostage, but it just feels like Kingpin and Spider-Man just, like, had a talk, and he was like, I'm going to tell Nick Fury on you, and then it ended.
And they could have even done it in such an easy way where they just have a little blurb that, oh, the prosecutor will be Matt Murdock.
That would be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. So what are we rating this one? Maybe out of 100 Spider-Man licensed
materials,
licensed knickknacks. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to give it an 87 out of 100 Spider-Man licensed knickknacks.
I like it. That was extremely close to what I was going to give it, which is an 84 Spider-Man legally licensed knickknacks. Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, this whole run was just like really, really good, but this one probably wasn't as good as the last two. But I will say, knowing that Mark Bagley is leaving this next issue, I feel like he's putting in a lot of work in these. I mean, like, everything's just drawn so, like, well and beautifully. And, we didn't even comment on it at all, but, like, all of the pictures have so much detail. All of the faces have so much, like, emotion being conveyed on them that I feel like he's like really trying to put in his best work here on his last couple issues.
Yeah, I can see that. I think there's certain panels where it's just like fun for him to draw. I mean, we talked about the Daredevil crying on top of a church cross.
That's the one I'm looking at right now.
That really feels like something where Mark Bagley was like, you know what? I haven't got a chance to do this yet. You got to do this. I mean, how can you write over 100 issues of Spider-Man and have some Daredevil cameos and not have him crying on top of a church cross?
Okay, so what church is this? There's another architecture question for you. It's probably the one he always hangs out at. That's what I figured you would say immediately. Doesn't he like always have one specific church?
Yeah, he has like a church in Hell's Kitchen.
Yeah.
If this were to be the top of a real church, I feel like it kind of looks like, I forget the one that's at the corner of Wall Street and Broadway. It's like really famous.
St. Peter's Basilica.
Is that it?
I have no idea.
I don't think it is.
I'm sure it's not.
I don't know.
Is it the church? Is it the church that's in like National Treasure?
Yes.
Do you remember they go to a church at the corner of Broadway? I remember that church.
Yeah, that's like one of the oldest structures in New York City. At one point, it was the tallest building in New York City, and now it's like dwarfed by everything around it. I feel like it kind of looks like the top of that, but I could totally be wrong. It could just be a generic church.
Now, those are two movies I've got to watch again. The National Treasure films.
Definitely one of them was all right.
Which one? The first one? The second one was good. I'm a sucker for both of those movies, and I wanted the third to come out for so long. Never did.
My college roommate, that was like his favorite movie ever, and I was like, that?
Why?
Church at Trinity Church.
Yes.
Nope. That's not the cap of it. It does have a point like that, but it doesn't have a cross. And I don't know why the cross is on top of like a circle. I don't think that's any kind of architectural thing from old churches. Like, you would think that they're using like Gothic elements, and Gothic elements don't really incorporate circles.
Okay. You learn something new every day.
Yeah. Anyways, any other thoughts about this one?
No, I don't think so. It was a really good run. I'm looking forward to when Kingpin gets out of jail. I'm hoping we get one more good Kingpin arc here.
He's like a bad penny. He always comes back up. All right, next one. Issue 111. This one's written by Brian Michael Bendis, penciled by Mark Bagley and Stuart Immonen, inked by Drew Hennessy, colored by Justin Ponser, and lettered by Corey Petit. So we open on Peter and Aunt May returning to their house after S.H.I.E.L.D. or Damage Control or whoever had finished fixing it. And they sit at their kitchen table together, and May says that they need to talk about him being Spider-Man. And she asks him to explain again what happened, and he tells her about the bite. And she's like, oh yeah, I remember having to take you to the hospital after you got bit on that field trip. And he's like, yeah, that was the one. And he says, Norman Osborn put something in the spider, and whatever it was gave me powers. And May says, it's always something with that Norman Osborn, that snake. And he explains his history with the Osborns and that they're both goblins now. And Aunt May tells Peter...
And that they're both goblins now.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aunt May... Harry and his dad are both goblin creatures now. And MJ was also a goblin creature for a little bit, but she's fine, I think.
That is kind of how this whole issue goes. Is he's like walking around the kitchen, opening up the fridge, pouring a glass of milk, eating cookies, and he's like, "Oh yeah," and then vampires, blah 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 blah, and oh, and this happened, and this is the first she's hearing about all of this, and she's reacting like a regular person who's, shocked by it all. And Peter is just so matter of fact about these things. That's kind of the charm of this issue. It keeps coming back. And Aunt May tells Peter multiple times that even though he's Spider-Man, he still has to finish high school. And he says he will. And he's like, Aunt May, I know I have to finish high school. I need to go to college and get a doctorate in genetics and chemistry, all while being Spider-Man. And she asks him why he has to do that. And Peter says, because with great power, there must also come great responsibility. And May is like, that's what Ben used to say. And Peter says he knows. And he tells her that it was his fault that Uncle Ben died, and starts to cry. And May comforts Peter and says, a man killed Uncle Ben. He pulled the trigger. Not you, not me, one person, that man. And she tells him she's actually been in therapy about this all year. And she said she wanted to buy that house, and Ben didn't. And if they had bought the house that Ben liked, he would still be alive. So that's kind of interesting, John. She has felt guilty this whole time about being responsible for Ben's death too.
Unsurprisingly, this made me cry when I read it. Like quite a bit for a comic book. Not quite a bit in the grand scheme of things that make you cry, but for a comic book, this is pretty like. And I feel like you kind of breezed through Peter's telling her about Uncle Ben, but gosh, it's just like really good, because even before he starts telling her, you can see his like whole body like clenches up, and he's like, about to like explode with this like grief that he's like telling her. And once again, it's probably just Mark Bagley just like doing his thing these last two issues, because I think all of these faces just convey like so much emotion for what he and Aunt May are both like thinking. And I just loved it. And I feel really bad for Aunt May also, because of course like she would think like that, that feels like a very natural, like, yeah, he wouldn't have been shot here if we weren't living here. So even though that was 2 years ago, that's my fault. That's like how the human brain works, I feel like.
Yeah.
It's
and
sad.
I'm realizing a couple things. A lot of guilt in these issues, like we were just talking about Daredevil's guilt, and now Peter feels guilty for Uncle Ben dying, and turns out May did too. But then also, at some level, this whole issue kind of has to be about Mark Bagley. It kind of is the tribute to him for everything he's done for the series so far. And one thing that's like famously hard to do in comics is draw talking head scenes, people just having a conversation, because there's only so many ways you can do that without getting very, very creative. So that's why a lot of times in superhero comics, people will just still be wearing their costumes for a conversation. Like, there'll be no reason for Peter to be in his Spider-Man costume to talk to someone, but like maybe certain writers will do that. They'll draw him in the mask and have him hanging from a wall or, something. So there's something else going on. And I've said from the very beginning, Mark Bagley draws the hell out of people just having conversations. We can remember the body language that Peter, Gwen, and MJ had that one time that they were chopping it up in Peter's room, because it was just so vivid. And this issue is no different. I said earlier it was penciled by Bagley and Stuart Immonen. All of the scenes that are just people talking, that's just Peter and Aunt May talking, is Bagley. Stuart Immonen gets a little bit in the middle where there's some more action scenes. All of this issue, except for one noteworthy exception that I'll mention later, Bagley is just drawing them having a conversation, and whatever emotion they need to be feeling for that sentence is conveyed in that picture, and then it's a different feeling for the next panel, and it just flows very smoothly like a real human conversation.
Do you think that he specifically wanted to draw this conversation before he left? Do you think that was he was maybe that's even one of the reasons why he left, is he was waiting to do this scene because they'd been doing it for so long?
Man, I wonder, because even in the first few issues, go back to the very beginning of this show, you guys, Peter tells Mary Jane that he's Spider-Man in issue 7 or 8. And at that time, John was saying, I want him to do this to Aunt May. Why won't he have this conversation with Aunt May? I mean, this has been something that has been waiting and in the works, and it's been teased to us for the entire run. And we're finally getting some absolution with it.
Yeah.
So May starts asking more Spider-Man questions, like how does he find the bad guys, and where do the webs come from, and why the costume? And Peter says, originally I got the costume so I could make some money on the pro wrestling circuit. And May goes, what? And this is just another funny example of she hasn't been along with the ride with us, so that sounds really ridiculous to her. And Peter says, I know, it sounded like a good idea at the time. And he explains that the costume he's currently wearing was made by MJ. And Aunt May is a little offended that he would tell MJ and not her. But Peter says, not a diss on you. And May asks if MJ is okay with all the Spider-Man stuff. And John, I think this might have been the funniest line this issue. Peter says, we break up, we get back together. Norman Osborn threw her off a bridge once.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I still love how, him throwing her off the bridge is just a touchstone on this whole series that they just keep coming back to.
That's something you'd remember.
That I would remember?
That if you got thrown off a bridge, that's something that'd probably come back up in your life.
I know, but I'm just saying, that arc was so
yeah,
good.
that was yeah.
And it's defined Mary Jane kind of ever since.
Yeah.
And like we talked about, it's a subversion of the death of Gwen Stacy. So, but this is the first May's hearing about it, and she's obviously kind of freaked out. And Peter says, and that's why I didn't tell you. It puts you in danger, makes you an accomplice. And when I did finally tell you, you keeled over. And May says, I keeled over because your father and Gwen Stacy came back from the dead and people were shooting at our house. And he's like, yeah, okay, that's fair. And then this is another example of the tone of the conversation kind of shifting. And May gets kind of happy and says this is actually all very exciting. And she's glad that things finally make sense to her. And she tells Peter that she'd actually been obsessed with Spider-Man for a while and wanted to know who he was and why he was so close to her life. And she asks him how he knows when to stop being Peter Parker and start being Spider-Man. And he launches into a tale that becomes our excuse to get some action art in this issue. And so This becomes like a flashback to earlier in the day, and we get the thing that that Bendis likes to do, where he's writing the words off to the side of the panel instead of on the panel. And these are the scenes that are penciled by Stuart Immonen, who will be our next artist.
Oh wow, you can, I actually didn't notice that when I was reading through it the first time, but it's very, very obvious. So, is the comic for the rest of this run not drawn in Bagley's art style?
You don't want to hire someone else to draw in a different person's art style.
Gosh.
You hire an artist to draw the way they know how to draw. Stuart Immonen is a good artist, and it'd be a disservice to him and Mark Bagley to tell him to try and draw like Mark Bagley.
Okay. But look at, this very first scene. All the people in the office, right? They're all just more jagged, The eyes are kind of blacked out. Everything looks angrier. Do you understand what I'm saying?
It's a style. It's hard to draw really accurate, detailed people who are small and in the background of a shot. You know what I mean? Like if you had hyper realistic eyes on someone who was across the room, that would look surreal.
Okay, well, we'll see. I won't judge this off of one page.
I want to save everything I have to say about Stuart Immonen's art for when he gets his first full proper issue. So I'm not going to comment too much on what this looks like here. But anyways, Peter's tale, it was that earlier that day, and May's like, "You were Spider-Man today?" And he's like, "Yes. Anyways, follow along. I was working at the Daily Bugle." And she's like, "Oh, so you do really work at the Daily Bugle? That's not just a cover." He's like, "No, I really do work there. But also it is sometimes a cover." And he says it's a good place for him to work because it's like a hub of all this information about criminals and stuff that comes in. And he heard about a disturbance at Roxxon Industries. And May asks, "What's Roxxon Industries?" And Peter's like, "That's exactly what I've been thinking, because every other time I have to suit up these days, it's because of something happening there." And he says he's trying to figure out what Roxxon is up to and why so many criminals are targeting them. And in the panels, Peter arrives at a Roxxon facility as Spider-Man, and he sees the Spot destroying it. John, we remember the Spot, right? From Across the Spider-Verse?
Definitely. Yeah, I was excited when this guy showed up.
He's cool, right?
Yeah.
And Peter's trying to describe the Spot's powers to Aunt May, and she says she doesn't get it. And he's like, "Yeah, I know. It's theoretical quantum physics. You'd have to be a genius to understand any of it." And I don't know if that's like a humble brag that he thinks he is a genius.
No, I don't think he understands it either.
Or that's what he's saying, that he doesn't even understand it. But we get some shots of them fighting, and he says the Roxxon workers were yelling things like, "Frank, please, it was an accident. We would never have done this to you on purpose." So he knows that Roxxon somehow created this guy. And he explains that somehow he saved the day, and the cops showed up and pointed their guns at him, and that's just something that happens every time. And Peter speculates that maybe it means something, that there used to be no superheroes, and now there's hundreds, like they're all there for some grand purpose. And he asks May what she's thinking, and she says there's no precedent for what she's going to have to worry about. Other parents have to think about their kids doing drugs or crashing cars.
Wow, so is this like a little teaser for the rest of the run? I guess I didn't really notice that the first time, but...
That there's all these heroes?
Yeah. Are we going to get some big team up, Zach?
Oh my god.
Or a big bad that they've got to fight?
I don't know if this is what they're trying to foreshadow, but something does happen that's massive that involves all the heroes in the Ultimate Universe.
Okay. And we will get to it in this run?
Oh, we're going to see it.
Okay.
But I don't know if that was even in the plans at this point when he wrote that. But May says she's going to have to worry about things that no other parent does. They think about their kids doing drugs and getting in car crashes, and she's just going to have to know that he's constantly in danger and there's nothing she can do to stop him. And Peter asks if she wants to stop him, and she says she doesn't want him to get hurt, but she knows that he's doing a good thing. And he's like, you can't tell anyone about me, right? And she says, even Miles? And Peter says, who?
What a stupid question, Aunt May. Of course. Even my adult boyfriend? Of course. I'm trying to think of who she could have said that would be a more appropriate person to want to tell. Like, is she friends with anybody that we know or like?
I don't think so.
Okay.
At one point, she's like, can I talk to Mary Jane about it? And he's like, not in public. That's the only thing that is like a kind of reasonable question. But this scene is very funny to me because she's like, even Miles? And Peter says, who? And I wrote, that's a very Michael Bluth not remembering Anne moment. And May goes, the man I'm seeing. And Peter tells her that on her 10th wedding anniversary, she can tell him that he's Spider-Man. And Peter abruptly says, by not telling May, he was trying to spare her all of this. So if she wants to, he can go. And May asks what he's talking about. And Peter says, before your attack, you told me to go. I know we're all calm now, but you didn't ask for this. If you don't want this in your life, I'll leave. And May says, Peter, I love you. You are my son. In my wildest dreams, I couldn't even imagine that you would have grown up to be this good of a person. You are the best parts of your father, your mother, and my Ben, all rolled up into one amazing person. And Peter says, and you, I'm part you too. And May tells him, you stay here and you grow up. I don't want to miss a minute of it. And she pulls him in for a big hug and they both start crying. And then Aunt May says she has more questions, but she's going to lie down. And she asks Peter what he's going to do. And he smiles and says, I don't know. Go to MJ's, do some homework. I'm sure I'll find something to do. And on the final page, we see a beautiful full-page Mark Bagley drawing of Spider-Man swinging through the city as sunbeams shine around him.
Oh, that is his last ever panel.
Sort of.
Does he come back for some special ones?
He comes back for the very end of the series.
Okay, so this is not, I was going to say this is the all-time record breaker, but I guess it...
Well, it is because it's consecutive issues.
Okay, so 111, that's where the record stands.
Unless we're saying it's 110 because Stuart Immonen worked on this issue too.
No, definitely not.
Okay. All right. But as far as anyone knows, that's like the last panel of Ultimate Spider-Man that Bagley ever was going to draw.
Aww. Okay, what should we give this one? What's our rating?
I rated this one 9 out of 10 basic Spider-Man facts explained to Aunt May.
Okay. I'll give this one... I'm trying to think. Sell me on this, Zach. What were some of the best parts? What were some of the not as... what left you wanting more?
I mean, I think sometimes the topic of conversation would just shift abruptly, but overall it had some really funny moments where Aunt May is the straight character, like in a comedic sense. She's the one who is coming in with none of the information that we've been around for, at this point, 110 issues that we just assume, oh yeah, we know about the goblins, we know about vampires, we know Mary Jane got thrown off a bridge. This is all new information to her, and it's fun to watch her react to that. And then, John, I have read this before, and I don't even get emotional with media very often, and I almost cried in that very last bit of the conversation where he's like, I can go. I know this is going to be really hard on you if I stay. And she calls him her son and tells him how proud she is of him, and they hug.
Aw.
That was just a beautiful moment.
I'm gonna give this one.
The stuff with
an
the
8.
spot didn't matter. I didn't care about any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna give this one an 8. I feel confident with that rating. Although it was good, I don't think it was like I don't know. I don't think it deserved a 9. You know, you're right. The stuff with the spot didn't matter. It was just like thrown in. Even the way he you said he saves the day, and then even in the retelling of the story, Aunt May's like, "Oh my gosh, you have to fight people," and he's like, "Okay, I can tell you don't like hearing this, so I'll just let you know I saved the day." You know, and it's like, okay,
he doesn't really understand how the spot's powers work, and he says something like, "I saved the day," I guess somehow. And so he doesn't really know what the conclusion of that battle was, just that it sort of ended. And I think that's like a tease that the spot might return.
Ooh.
But the spot returning doesn't matter to me because his first appearance did nothing for me. It was like the B plot where the conversation was way more important.
Yeah. But it was still a good one. You know, it was good them finally having this conversation, and you know, now Aunt May's in on things, so how's this going to change their relationship? You know, is he still going to sneak out? He's obviously still lying to her a little bit because he's like, I'm going to go to MJ's to do homework, and we know that he's going to go Spider-Man around. So it's not like he's now going to be honest and be like, okay, I'm going to go Spider-Man a bit, Aunt May. See ya.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's next week?
Okay, so hear me out. Instead of moving right along in this series, I think it's been a minute since we've done a bonus episode. And I want to do a 2-part bonus episode. We're going to read Spider-Man Renew Your Vows 1 and 2 next week. And John, that is miniseries. It's a 5-issue miniseries that was part of Secret Wars in 2015. And it's pretty well reviewed. It's pretty popular. A lot of people like it. I really like it. It's probably the closest thing besides Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man that we've ever had to Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man.
Okay. Spider-Man Renew Your Vows issue 1 and 2. And then what? The next week we'll do 3, 4, and 5?
Yeah.
Okay. I like it. I'm good for a bonus episode or 2.
Yeah, and I was looking at it last night. I read those issues again, and I was just to make sure it was as good as I remembered it being. And I was like, "Oh yeah, we're reading this." And I saw some familiar names. I think it's colored by Justin Ponzer and lettered by Corey Petit as well.
Oh, VC's Corey Petit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. That'll be good. I'm excited.
Yep. All right. We got any non-Spider-Man stuff? You gave me some good teases earlier that you've got some things to talk about.
I've got a bunch of stuff to talk about. Okay. So, but I do need to go and grab a couple things so when they come up I can show you.
Ooh, show and
tell.
tell.
Can you give me like a minute and a half? One of them's out in my car.
Okay.
All right. I'm back.
All right.
So, as you and maybe our listeners know, I'm in a bowling league every Wednesday night. We actually take the summers off, so I'm not in it currently. But these are both bowling adjacent. The first one is I bought a new bowling sleeve, and it's Spider-Man themed.
Oh, nice.
I know. It's not like Kingpin officially licensed Spider-Man, but I did pick one out that I thought was Spider-Man.
It sure is red, white, and blue.
It sure is, yeah. And then the second one that I'm more excited about.
Okay.
So, our bowling team name is called the Strong Guys. And and there's even we have different we call them patches if you do something. like in bowling, you get a patch, right? There's like a million of them. So one
Is
of
that
them
just
is
a you guys thing, or is that like
yeah,
a
it's just like an
bowling
our
thing?
team thing, and we keep
Okay.
this Excel spreadsheet of every single patch, and so it's pretty legit. But one of them is called an X-Men patch that it's where everyone has to strike in the 10th frame. You're X-Men. So the X-Men patch were called the Strong Guys. How excited was I when I was watching the X-Men animated series, and I saw that there's a character called Strong Guy.
Guido Caroselli.
Did you
Yeah.
know this, Zach?
How'd you find out about him through the show?
They went to Genosha and they just talked to a random person, and then I was watching some like video Easter egg thing, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, they met Strong Guy. I can't believe they met him." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe this either. Are you serious?" So that's all to say, I had to just go on eBay and go ahead and buy an X-Men Strong Guy action figure for the bowling team.
Let's go. Yeah,
Yep.
I knew he was in that show, but I didn't think they ever said his name or anything. So I was like, how does John know that he saw him?
Yep, luckily I watched the right video, so it was pure happenstance.
Yeah. We love Guido. He's a big, goofy, fun-loving dude.
It says here on the back here, I'll read you his character description. Strong Guy joined X Factor for the simplest of reasons, the regular paycheck. Caring little about problems between man and mutant kind, he lives instead for the finer things in life, wine, women, and song, and he's not above using his tremendous mutant strength to put those who would criticize his lifestyle in place. I love Strong Guy.
Yeah. And he was Lila Cheney's bodyguard.
There you go.
And he once, he got so big and strong that he had a heart attack.
Okay, so before I get to any of my other stuff, do you have anything? My stuff will go quick, Zach. We'll just breeze through them. We've already breezed through 2 of them.
I mean, we haven't talked about the last episode of X-Men yet.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so what did you think of the finale?
I love the animation. I think the animation these last 3 or so episodes was just on point. I don't really like the message, It's like, oh, well, we have to show mercy to the genocidal villain because that shows that we're good guys. It's like,
yeah, at the end where they're like about to kill him and they're like, "No, we need to hug him or something."
yeah, he is more like us than we know. Okay, well, that doesn't help the people in Genosha who died, or anyone who died,
Yeah.
from any of his other schemes. Like, he also deserves justice.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't fully remember, like, let's see.
Oh, and I hated that they're like, aha, we've got the heroes beat, and Jean is dead in the water, and all the others are captured, and this is great. And then she just pops out of the water, and she's like, I am Phoenix. And they're like, wait, I thought you weren't anymore. And they're like, yes, but a mother's love made it return to me somehow. It's like,
yeah, that
was
did feel
the
kind
stupidest thing. Yeah. Jean is just immensely powerful, even without the Phoenix Force. There was no reason to bring it back into it and have a piss poor explanation of why it's there.
of mother's love. What do you think of this Morph and Wolverine love triangle that I've been hearing about?
We've known about it the whole season. Like, I picked up on that very early on.
I don't know anything about that. Even when I watched this last one, I thought Morph was just like being nice, changing into Jean Grey. I didn't read anything into that at all. Like,
oh, what a good friend. Did you not pick up on like the shower scene in what?
I didn't.
Whatever?
I didn't really start watching the show very closely until episode 5. It was just like on in the background, and I'd be like kind of burning through them. So
Okay. Episode 3, there's a scene where Morph is like in the shower, and he's like, "Oh, Wolverine, you want to come help me get this spot?" Or
weird.
He thinks Wolverine is showering, and he's like, "Oh, you want me to scratch that spot for you or something?" Like, there was a lot of subtext there.
Oh, this reminded me of something that I thought of earlier in the week, Zach. Okay. You are dating Mystique. It's your dream. Is it insulting to Mystique, or if you had the same powers as Mystique, would it be insulting if someone asked you to transform into the most beautiful celebrities when you're getting physical? Is that a rude thing to do?
I think it's got to be understandable, right?
I don't know, man. I was like really going back and forth in my mind about this. I was like, I can see how certain couples with their personalities, that would be like their they'd like love doing stuff like that, you know? But then I could see how other people, it would be like insulting and like they would take offense to that. So I do, I wanted to ask you.
Someone who can transform like that would probably be bummed that their partner couldn't also transform like that, because they'd want it too.
Probably.
What I was actually thinking about this earlier this week too, because of the morph stuff. I was wondering, is that ethical? Like, is that fair to the people that they are then taking the form of? Like, is that somehow unethical to Jean Grey if Morph turns into Jean and lets Logan blow her back out? Like,
yes,
that feels icky to that person. I'm not thinking about it in terms of, is it rude? Is it rude to the person who's doing the transforming?
No, it definitely is.
Yeah,
because that's like saying, I mean, you can cut this out if you want, but right, if Mystique was a porn star, it would be super unethical for her to go around making money off of not only women, but she could transform into LeBron James, and now LeBron James is starring in a porno. You know, like, yeah, it's like messed up.
It's like the AI Taylor Swift porn, basically. The only difference is there's like a cognitive person who's making the choice to abuse that person's image.
Yeah.
Instead of like a computer generating it.
But was it unethical for Morph while Logan is like dying to like give him some spirit? No, definitely not. I thought that was cute and I liked it.
Well, because he's not actually doing sex. At that point, you're saying, is it unethical for Morph to use his powers ever in any situation?
Okay. Well, okay.
Is it unethical if he got on the table with him and was like, "This will keep you alive, pretty boy," and just started going to town? That's not what happened.
Yeah.
He was just encouraging him.
Okay, so Professor X and Magneto had a big psychic fight, and
did you
everybody thought that they were going to turn into... I know it sure did look like they were pretty close to each other for a little bit. Like, it looked like they might kiss.
There were some people who missed all that, and they're like, no, they're just really good friends. And I'm like, I don't think they're supposed to canonically be gay, but how can you not see why fans pick up on that? And fans, like, think that they are.
Yeah. Well, I do think that they're just really good friends. I mean, I don't think that they're gay.
You know, like, what queer baiting is?
Yes, I think that there's probably a little bit of that.
Yeah, they put enough in there that people who want to read them as gay absolutely can.
Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good one, but it probably was, like, not as great as like the last like 3 to 4 episodes, you know. And then they all just go back in time. I am looking forward to the apocalypse thing. I'm guessing Gambit is coming back as one of the 4 horsemen, Death. And like my favorite line in the episode is when Bishop goes and sees someone. I don't even remember. Maybe it was like Sunspot, or I don't even remember
Forge.
who he talks. Yeah, Forge. And he's like, well, I guess we gotta go save the X-Men from another time. And it's just like, you couldn't like write a setup more explicitly if you tried. It's like him looking at the camera and being like, I'm getting too old for this. We gotta go save the X-Men again in season 2.
Listen, rookie, it's my last day on the force, so I hope nothing goes wrong today.
But that should be a good one. Season 2 should be good.
Someone said, oh, it's gonna kill me in season 2 when Remy comes back as the Horseman of Death, and Rogue has to tell him, your name's Gambit, remember it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she'll probably say that. Oh, that was really nice when Rogue said that to whoever. I liked that a lot. Yeah.
I had to replay that scene.
So did I.
She said that.
So did I.
To the whole time she was kicking his ass on the blue area of the moon. I was like, this rocks. I love this.
Yeah, I actually like hit the back 15 seconds button a couple times also after that. Yeah, it was just really good. By far, probably the best MCU thing that's happened in. I don't even know if I'm thinking about what the last MCU thing was that was better than this. I would
several years.
I would have to go back quite a long time, I think.
Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was really good.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that was great. Yeah.
I don't think I'll rewatch it like I'll rewatch X-Men.
Gosh, it's like a hard rewatch. It's just so emotional, Like, I feel like you feel every bit of the, like, 2 or 2.5 hours, however it is, because it's a very, a lot of feeling in that movie.
Yeah, you kind of have to put in some, like, effort to watch it.
Yeah. It's not like a fun jaunt like the other Guardians movies are. Okay, anything else on X-Men?
Nope. What was your thing?
Did you watch the Harrison Butker speech? Because this is the #1 sports podcast for comic book lovers and the #1 comic book podcast for sports lovers.
John, I hate politics.
I know. Everybody hates politics. Do you even know what I'm referring to about this?
I do. I read, like, I don't think it was the whole transcript of the speech, but I've read the quotes that people have issue with.
It's okay. So I came in and my office mate was asking me about it, and all I saw about it when I just Googled it really quickly, and the thing she was like talking about was his talk about women being wives and mothers and blah, 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 right? There's so much more craziness in that 20-minute speech than that, like, little snippet.
For real.
I honestly can't believe that that's what is getting the most attention, because there were like 10 other things that I was like, this guy is insane.
Are you serious? Like what?
I mean, there's just a lot of like little snippets of like anti-gay stuff and like there's just a lot of politics in it in general, to where I don't even know the stuff he's referring to. Like I can't tell if
that's how you know it's the conspiracy.
I know. And he's talking about how, like, Congress passed laws that you'll be thrown in jail for saying who killed Jesus. So, right, there's like a little anti-Semitism in there probably somewhere. And it was just every line he said. I was having so much fun watching it. That's why I told you had to watch it. I was like cracking up after, because I just didn't know what he was going to say next.
John, I understand, like anti-Semitism, like all kinds of hate, doesn't make sense. And that's part of, like, when people are like, X-Men doesn't make sense. Why do they hate the mutants, but the Fantastic Four and the Avengers are fine? It's like, because that's exactly the point, because bigotry is stupid. But specifically when Christians say anti-Semitic stuff because blah, 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 the Jews killed Jesus, do they not realize that according to their own faith, the whole point of Jesus coming to earth was to die for our sins? And like Christianity doesn't happen if that doesn't happen. Dude, and Jesus was a Jew. I don't understand that whole line of hatred when they say that. And it's like a fundamental misunderstanding of what they are supposed to believe.
It's not. I mean, it is a fundamental misunderstanding, but it's exactly what you said. It's like, how does that make sense? Well, it doesn't, because it's stupid. You know, it doesn't make sense. You could never, right? We could take Harrison Butker and we could point out 400,000 places in the Bible where it says God loves everybody and nobody is supposed to be treated unfairly, and every single person is made in God's image and blah, blah, blah. And he would still think that, like, trans people are going against God's will and gay people shouldn't get married. And it's like, well, how does that make sense? Well, it doesn't. You know, it's just like stupidity. It's just true. Bigotry.
Right. I did see that he's, like, leading the NFL in jersey sales right now.
That's the worst part about watching that speech is the thunderous applause he received at the end of it. And hearing stuff like that, and it's like, man, this is like so... I'll say it, I'm going to cancel him. I can't put him on my fantasy football teams next year. And I love having Harrison Butker on my fantasy football team because he's always good for a good team name, you know, with Butker, right? Butker, yeah. I hardly know her. I did an Office one a couple years ago. Butker, our prices have never been lower, because there's the Office quote, Butlicker, our price. So... But I just can't do it, you know. Sure, I'll have the abusive boyfriend Tyreek Hill on my team, but I won't have Harrison Butker on it.
Based. I stand it. Really, what you should do is stop playing in fantasy leagues where you roster a kicker or a defense, because it's way more fun to make those additional spots like flex and super flex, and you just worry about
That's true.
The positions that matter. But
that's true.
I appreciate your principled stand of not drafting Harrison Butker, even though he's the kicker for the number one offense.
Yep.
That's a couple years ago. We were drafting our dynasty league. Like, it was the startup draft, and it's like round 12, and I'm looking at the board, and it's pretty sparse. And Deshaun Watson is sitting right there, and I'm like... this guy, but I'm going to draft him, but I'm going to trade him immediately. But how can I not? Because he's worth, like, right now we're in the 12th round, and I know if I wait 2 months, I'll get a first round pick out of him. But I hated doing it.
Well, it's funny you say that. Maybe that is what gave me the idea. But last year, when he was like a couple weeks away from coming back, I picked him up. And then when he came back, traded him to someone who needed a QB, and then just like started spamming the group me like, can you believe this guy trading for Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, I did the exact. I waited until he wasn't suspended anymore, and I was like, oh, your moral compass will allow you to roster this guy? Could it be me?
Could it be me? Yeah. Okay, I've got one more thing, and then the jam of the week is my last thing. But I'm sure you know, Doctor Who actually came back on. I'm sure you're not keeping up with it, but
I've been seeing commercials for it.
Yeah, it came back on. There's like 2 episodes in right now. It's been okay. It's been some fun. You know,
what's the consensus on this
in the world?
This
it's not
new
the worst
Doctor?
Thing. He's good. He's fun. I can, you know, like. It feels like Doctor Who, you know, they're like running around having fun. It doesn't, it's at least not like a chore to watch like it had been the past couple of years. Like, the episodes are, at least, they might not be like the best things ever, like, but they're a good time.
A rousing endorsement from a diehard fan.
There you go. Yeah. Everything's still so heavy-handed, man. I just, like, can't get over the, like, lack of subtlety in writing. And we've said it before, but, like, almost every single story is probably coming from, like, a liberal perspective, just because you can, like, always see different, like, meanings in it. And they still just have to, like, hit you over the head with the moral of the story. Instead of just like, I'm trying to think of exactly what it was in episode 1 that like made me think this, but I don't even remember what it was about. So
You know what? That makes me wonder, you know, do they feel like they have to do that because people just have such poor media literacy these days that if they try and just make a good story that's nuanced, it immediately gets co-opted by like the opposite stance it was trying to take? Like how there's like conservative Star Trek fans, you know? So now they have to go out of their way to say, this is not what we are trying to say. We are trying to say the opposite because people just watch things and don't get it.
Maybe that could be, but I actually think that they're just like really trying to like appeal to like the liberal
just checking
like
boxes.
Yeah, exactly. They're just like checking boxes and it's usually just like awful and it completely takes me out of any show or movie I'm watching when they like turn to the camera and they're like, who would ever say no to letting refugees in? That would have to be terrible. And it's like, we get it. You know, it's like US politics. We could have gotten that idea just by watching the story. We could have all come to the conclusion that you should let I'm just like making an example, right? We didn't need the main character to say to the bad guy, they're just refugees. They're innocent people in all of this, you know? So.
Listeners, we want to be clear. We're not against these stories. We're just saying tell them in better written ways.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the thing. All of the heavy-handedness, it's like the most like pro thing that I like. The messages are all good. It just like
don't make it cringy.
It feels preachy. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
and I also don't believe that Disney as a corporation really cares that much about all of these different things that they're like, you know, preaching.
Right. They just want to be perceived as caring.
Yeah. So anyway, watch Doctor Who.
Cool.
Okay, what else do you have? I've monopolized our something else. Give us something to end on.
Do you have a jam of the week?
Yeah, I do. I have 5 or 6 actually, but they're all the same.
Christ.
But they're all the same thing.
I have 2 jams of the week, so at this point, we're just giving them a playlist every time.
Well, my jams of the week are, maybe you remember this album from back in the day, but it's the Jay-Z Linkin Park Collision Course album.
Collision Course.
I have been listening to that for the past week, and I love it. It's so good.
Goated album.
It is.
They need to do something like that again. Like
I was thinking
nowadays.
the same thing. I'm like, you would like almost never see that. Like that was like Linkin Park at Linkin Park's peak. And I mean, Jay-Z's had a peak for 30 years at this point, but it was Jay-Z at his peak. And they don't make any type of similar music together. You wouldn't think that they'd like hang out together. And then they just like put this whole album out that's like the best thing ever.
Yeah, give me like that, but today. Make it like Lil Durk and Bring Me the Horizon.
Kendrick Lamar and Fall Out Boy.
I have no faith in modern Fall Out Boy. I feel like that would actually be that could be good or bad. But yeah, that concept.
Yeah. Okay, so if any of our listeners have never heard that album, it's only like 5 songs, and they're just like mashups of Jay-Z Linkin Park songs that they got in the studio to like sing. It's not like a DJ mashup, and they're awesome.
And it's specifically Hybrid Theory era Linkin Park songs and Black Album era Jay-Z songs. It's like the albums they were promoting at the time.
It's the like stereotypical Linkin Park songs and Jay-Z songs, I feel like, you know.
Because those ended up being like their best albums. Yeah. I was just listening to the Black Album on vinyl, like as I was doing dishes the other day. If Hybrid Theory was on vinyl for like a decent price, I would definitely own it.
Wonder how much that is. All right, Zach, when's your birthday?
January 6th.
You heard it, listeners. January 6th. I'm seeing $75, $60.
Oh, that's not as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah.
I might actually pull the trigger on that someday. I swear I thought it was like $200 or $300.
I don't know. I mean, I could be looking at the wrong thing. I Googled for like 1 second.
Okay. Anyways, my jams of the week are Discomfort In by the Casper Fight Scene, one of the bands that I saw at Stoopfest. And the day I saw them, I talked to their singer. I was like, I know you guys were just in Indianapolis at Healer. That's like my favorite venue. I'm really kicking myself that I wasn't there. He's like, oh yeah, it was great. We stayed the night there, and it's like this art installation place where, you know, they've got little interactive like tents that you can walk through and stuff, and they slept in those and played video games. And what he didn't mention is that the very next day they were announcing another show at Healer. So I'm going to be seeing them later this summer at that same venue I was talking to them about. But Discomfort In, that's like their big hit song. Everyone was popping off for it at Stoopfest. And then Suffocate by Knocked Loose. I am so proud of those guys. I've been following them since the Laugh Tracks era when, you know, they weren't even selling out like 100, 200 cap venues. You know, you could see them for $12. And right now they're like playing, you know, the main stages of like big festivals and stuff. And this new album just dropped, and Suffocate is officially topping Taylor Swift in the Spotify charts.
Wow.
And this is like a heavy as band.
Wow.
I saw them once in a pizza parlor, and I stage dove off of the Coke machine, and I got the mic while I was in the air for the arf arf part of Counting Worms.
Dude, you'd never know what a crazy person you are at concerts from anything else about you. Yeah, you would just never know.
I got to keep them on their toes, John. I can't just be clean cut everywhere.
Okay, so for the last jam of the week, what's the song that you sung with this band? I feel like we need to let the
song that
know.
I just talked about, diving off the Coke machine, or at
No.
Stoopfest, where I got the mic.
Stoopfest, where you got the mic.
Do the Sick by Direct Hit. You'll see what I'm talking about when I say there's no talent in it. It's just how long can you yell on the same breath.
Okay, so I've got to try to find a video for this and listen to this song.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Nope, that's all I got. Another successful one in the books.
We've done it again.
So join us next week as we start to read Spider-Man Renew Your Vows. That'll be a treat.
Yep, that will be. And thank you to Ian Hickey for our music and Alyssa Seaman for the artwork. And thank you all for listening and leaving us a review or a comment. You can find us, the First Read Ultimate Spider-Man podcast, on Spotify or Apple Music or anywhere else that you listen to podcasts. And you can come and chat with us and leave us a message on Instagram at First Read Podcast. Send us an email at firstreadspidey@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, First Read Ultimate Spider-Man Podcast. See you next week.
See ya.